Today we're going to talk through how to fix a bad commit. There's plenty of reasons for that. Either you added a file you shouldn't have, wrote a bad commit message, wrote some bad code. Today we're going to talk through how to fix that commit. If you're new to the Self-Teach.me channel, my name is Amy Dutton. I'm a web designer and developer. If you're interested in getting into this space, sometimes it's hard to know where to go or what resources to trust. I want to help you level up and get to where you want to be. Git is a big part of development because it's one way that developers are able to work together and collaborate on projects. If you're not sure what it is or why you would want to use it on a project, how to get it installed on your computer, check out some of the other videos in this series, a link in the card above. As I mentioned earlier in this video, we'll be talking about what happens when you make a wrong commit. When you're trying to correct your commit or your code, there's several options that you have available depending on whether you committed your files locally or you already pushed remotely. I think this is easier to explain if you're working with actual project files. After all, that mirrors real life. I have a few files posted on GitHub that we can use as a starting point. This is based on the jokes project that we were working on in the last video. On your computer, open up the terminal. You can just use the default terminal that comes pre-installed on your Mac, or you can be fancy like me and use Hyper. You can download it for free. I'll include a link in the description below, as well as a link to the Cobalt Sue theme that I'm using. Within the terminal, go to the folder where you want your files to live. If the terminal makes you feel a little queasy, don't worry, it's not quite as scary as it sounds. Plus, I can show you a little trick. Within the terminal, type cd space, so it stands for change directory. Then within your Finder, navigate to where you want the files to live. And I'm gonna click and drag this folder onto my terminal window, and you'll see that it automatically copied the path for me, and I can hit enter. So I'm at that location within my terminal. Since we already have a repo online that we want to use as a starting point, we can copy this repository link, and then within our terminal, type git clone and then paste that link. We haven't talked about clone yet, but it allows you to download any files from GitHub or any other online repository and put them on your computer. Before we get too far, let's talk a little bit about workflow. This is how Git works. You work out of your working directory where you add files, make edits, and move things around. Once you're ready to make a commit, you stage those files and write a brief message explaining what you did. When you commit those files, they're saved to your local repository. In the last step, you push those files to an online repository, typically GitHub, Bitbucket, or GitLab. If you're smart, which I think you are, you'll notice several key areas in the process: your working directory, your local repository, and a remote repository. Yeah, with this in mind, there are several different scenarios or options to correct a bad commit depending on where you are in the process. Scenario number one, before you stage your files. Let's open our code that we downloaded from GitHub. So within the Finder, I'm just going to drag this folder onto VS Code. Let's make some changes to our files. Open jokes.txt and let's add a joke. So let's say knock knock, who's there? Tank. Tank who? You're welcome. Now, we haven't committed or staged anything. I know we just made a simple change to a joke and it would be easy to go back to the way that things were. In fact, VS Code has this green line to show us what code has been added since our last commit. But just imagine with me, sometimes you make so many changes that it is beyond a Command Z. Remember, if you're not sure what changes you've made, you can always go over the terminal and type git status. So I'm gonna head back over to Hyper. I'm gonna type ls. This lists out all the files and folders within our current directory. And here's the folder that we downloaded from GitHub. So I'm gonna type cd for change directory. And then instead of typing all this out, I'm just gonna hit tab and it auto-completed that for me. I'm gonna hit enter and now I can type git status. And you can see here, I've modified jokes.txt. If you wanna know what specific changes were made to that file, you can type git diff jokes.txt. And it will show you this part in green is the knock knock joke that I added. So to get out of this, I can type :Q, and that will quit that view. We have three different options. Number one, we can discard all local changes, but store them for later use within a stash. So I'm gonna close this file, and within my terminal, I'm going to type git stash. Now if we open our jokes.txt file inside VS Code, it removed that last knock knock joke that we added. Perfect. If we ever wanted to add the joke back in, we could go over to our terminal and type git stash This will take the last stash that we created and reapply those changes. So if we open up VS Code, you'll notice that our knock knock joke reappeared. If you use this technique a lot, it's actually helpful if you name your stashes so that you can easily go back later and find what you're looking for. Let's stash this again, but this time label it so we can find what we're looking for. So within the terminal, I'm going to type git stash save added thank you knock knock joke. You'll notice that the label is inside a set of quotes. Let's hit enter. Now if we go back, let's open up our jokes.txt file. The knock knock joke is gone, but let's add a new joke. So what do you call a pig that does karate? A pork chop. Let's stash this. So I'm gonna open our terminal. I'm gonna type git stash save pig karate joke. Awesome, now if we wanna access a list of all the code that we stashed within our terminal, we can type git stash list. And you'll see we have our pig karate joke and our Tanku knock knock joke. You'll notice that there is a number next to all the items in our list here, 0, 1, or 2. We can use that number to apply a specific stash to our code. So I'm going to type git stash apply 1. I do want to point out that if you run git stash list again, you'll notice that our item is still in our list. Here, number 1, added Tanku knock knock joke. If you run git stash pop to apply the last item you stashed, the item will be actually removed from the list. That's what pop means. It pops it off the end. So let's look at another option. So option number 2 is to permanently discard any local changes made to a file. You can run this line from the terminal. Git checkout head file name. So in our case, file name is jokes.txt. As a shortcut, you can also use dash dash instead of typing out head. Maybe you're wondering what is head.
Does not compute.
The head is the current commit you're on. I'll show you what I mean. Within jokes.txt, I'm going to add a new joke. Why can't a nose be 12 inches long? Because it'd be a foot. So I'm going to stage this and commit it. So within our terminal, I'm going to say git add jokes.txt, git commit, added a nose joke. I'm going to add another joke. So here, knock knock, who's there? Hatch, hatch who, bless you. So I'm going to stage this and commit it. Added a knock knock joke. I'm gonna jump over to tower because I think it's a little bit easier to visualize within a GUI. If I click on this master branch, okay, you can see that the most recent commit I made has this head label right next to it. If I check out the previous commit, now this has the head label right next to it. So this is the current commit that I'm looking at. I'm gonna jump back to our most recent commit, and in the terminal, you can type git show head. This shows me the current commit that I'm on. Here's the identifying number. I'm the author. It tells me the message, and here are the changes that I made to the code. Okay, let's look at that last command that we used within our terminal again. We have git checkout head jokes.txt. And hopefully this will start to make sense, but you're essentially saying that you want the head or your current commit to go back to the way that you had jokes.txt. When you're in your working directory, the last option that we have is to permanently discard all local changes to all files. So let's go back to our jokes.txt and add another joke to our file. Why did the turkey cross the road twice? To prove he wasn't a chicken. Now let's give this file a save, and then within our terminal, let's run git reset hard. Now, if you open up VS Code, you'll notice that the last joke that we added is no longer there, and the file was reset to the previous commit. Scenario number 2, unstage a file that you haven't committed. Let's go back to our jokes.txt file. And let's add another joke. So why did the bike fall over? Because it was too tired. Okay, let's stage this to be committed. So let's open up our terminal and say git add jokes.txt. Oh no, whoops. What if I wanted to add another joke to this file before committing it? We've already staged the file. Well, within the terminal, we can run git reset head file name, or in our case, jokes.txt. You'll see there's an N next to jokes.txt, which is short for modification. Another common shortcut when people are running this is to say git reset dash dash instead of head jokes.txt. If you look at our file inside of VS Code, you'll notice it looks the same, nothing changed. But if we run git status within the terminal, you should see this. You'll see that jokes.txt is listed under the section that says changes not staged for commit. In our project, we're only working with one file, and in most projects you will have multiple files. So if you wanted to unstage everything, you can just say git reset instead of saying git reset file name. Now, if you want to save these changes for later, we can use the commands that we looked at earlier, git stash. Or if you wanted to just get rid of everything permanently, you can type git reset hard. Scenario number 3, you've committed the changes locally, but you haven't pushed them. Since you've committed your changes, they've been recorded by your local repository, but since you haven't pushed them yet, they're not public. So it's a lot easier to make changes quietly. Option number 1, without modifying history. You can go back to a specific commit. Within the terminal, just type git revert commit ID. So how do you know what that commit ID is? Well, let's run git log. You'll see the word commit and then a random string of letters and numbers. That string is the entire commit ID, kind of crazy. To run our commit though, we only need the first 7 characters. So if we want to go back to the second commit that we made, we can copy these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's do git revert our ID. I'm getting a merge conflict here. In a minute, I'll go over how to resolve these. If you only wanted to go back to a specific commit for a specific file, you could add the file name to the end. So option number 2, modifying the history. When modifying history, there's only one command that you need to know. It's git rebase. If you add the -i flag, it will enable you to do certain things. For example, let's reword the commit message. So if I add the commit ID, we'll open a file within our Vim editor in our terminal. I can type I to go into insert mode. If you look at the bottom left corner, you see insert. On the commit message that I want to edit, I'm going to change the word pick to edit. Then I leave all the others as pick. Then I'll hit the escape key to exit insert mode. I'm gonna type a colon and you'll see my cursor appear at the bottom of the screen. I'm gonna type WQ. W means save and Q means quit. So I'm gonna hit enter. You'll see my terminal gives me a few commands to run. So git commit amend. This puts me back in Vim where I can modify the commit message. I'm gonna make this commit a little bit more descriptive. So I'm gonna hit the I key to go into insert mode and type foot and hit the escape key, colon, WQ. Now let's run this last line, git rebase continue. And it says that it's successfully rebased and updated. So now I'm gonna type git log. You can see this lists out all the commits that we've made, and here you can see our updated commit message. I should also mention that if you want to modify the last commit message that you made, you can just type git commit amend into the terminal. This will just open the last commit message that you made within Vim, and this is a heck of a lot easier. Okay, another option is to completely drop or delete a commit. Within the terminal, I'm going to use git log. So you can see a list of all the commits that we've made. I'm gonna get rid of the last commit that we made. To exit that view, I'm gonna hit colon Q, And now within the terminal, I'm gonna type git rebase I. A list of recent commits is gonna appear within Vim. The last item in the list is the most recent commit that I made. So I'm gonna delete that by changing the word pick to drop. So I'm gonna hit the I key to go into insert mode. I'm gonna change this to say drop, hit the escape key, hit :W, Q to save and close. Now, if I type git log, you'll see that that last commit is no longer listed. Another option with git rebase is squashing commits. Now this might sound a little weird, but basically you take, say, 5 commits and you squash it down to 1 commit. And maybe this sounds like a terrible idea to you. Why would you ever want to get rid of your Git history? And if you're working on a project by yourself, that logic makes complete sense. But sometimes if you're working on a large team or an open source project, it makes your repository history a whole lot cleaner if you have 1 commit per feature. So I'm gonna type git log so you can see my Git history. I've made several commits, and so I'm going to scroll down and grab this commit ID. I'm gonna copy that and let's exit that view. Now I'm gonna type git rebase -I and then the commit ID. Similar to before, this opens up a text file in Vim. Here we want to squash these commits into a single commit. So you can only squash into a previous commit. Within this view, the first commit in the list is the oldest. We want to squash all of our commits down into this one. You can't squash up. So I'm going to change all of the commits I want to squash from pick to squash. I'm going to hit I, go into insert mode, and I'm going to change this to say squash. Hit the escape key, hit :WQ to save and close. And then now within the terminal, I'm still in Vim, but it displays a commit message that created for me. You can keep this text or you can change the text to be whatever you want. I'm actually going to create an entirely new commit message. So I'm not in insert mode. So I'm going to hit Shift-D, and this will actually delete all the content on that single line. I'm gonna remove all these. I'm gonna hit I to go into insert mode, and then I can just hit the delete key to remove all those extra lines. So I'm gonna type added a bunch of jokes. I'm gonna hit the escape key and hit WQ to save and quit. Starting to get the hang of this. And now when we go back to the command prompt and I type git log, you'll see it says added a bunch of commits. And you'll see all of our commits have been squashed down into this single commit. Okay, scenario number 4, you've committed and pushed everything. In this last scenario, you've committed and pushed your changes to GitHub, but now you need to go back and change something. There are 2 ways you can do this. 1, without changing the history. This is the suggested way. Number 2, changing the history. Now, this is discouraged because someone on your team could have that bad code on their computer, and part of using Git is being able to track all the changes made to a project and making sure that everybody's files are always current and up to date. So this kind of goes against what the whole purpose of Git. Let's look at the first option, the right way of doing things without changing the project history. So let's look at our Git log to know what we're working with. I'm gonna grab the commit ID for the item that I want to go back to. And I'm gonna type Command Q to get out of this view. And then on the command prompt, I'm gonna type git revert that commit ID. You'll notice an error. This is actually a merge conflict. We'll get more into this in a future video when I talk about working with a team, but don't let this scare you. The easiest way to resolve this is to go into VS Code. You'll notice that within this file browser, VS Code's put this C, and that lets me know that there's a conflict. So when I open this file, you'll notice that there's these marks, head, and then there's also one down here. Basically, it's telling me we don't know what to do with these lines. What do you want to keep? What do you want to get rid of? Yeah. The easiest thing to do is to delete these lines and to get the file looking the way that you want it. Then give this file a save. Then you'll want to stage the files and commit them just like we have been doing. Another way is to use branching, and this is considered the best way when you're dealing with these types of issues. We'll talk more about branching in a future video, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes version now. We've been working off the master branch, and generally this is the production ready, the main branch of code. When you're working with a team though, it's a good idea that each feature gets its own branch. You can think of a branch as a copy of the code that doesn't interfere with the master production code. So in our case, we want to check out a previous commit and apply it to a branch. Let's go over to the terminal and type git log. So let's see, I'm going to copy this commit ID and hit :Q. And now with the command prompt, I'm going to type git checkout, and then I'm going to paste that commit ID. So you'll notice I get this really scary message that says detached head state. And I know it sounds serious. Basically, it's saying that we're no longer a part of a branch, that you have a single commit in history. Don't worry, we're going to stick it on a branch that we can continue to work on and eventually merge it back into master. So within the terminal, let's type git checkout B for branch, and we want to call it add more jokes. So it says switch to a new branch, add more jokes. Now instead of being on the master branch, we're on the add more jokes branch. And actually within my terminal, you can see here I'm on the add more jokes branch, whereas up here I was on the master branch. And then this is the detached head state. So we can open up our jokes.txt file and make all the changes that we want. I'm gonna add another joke. So what do you call a fish without eyes? Fish. Now let's get this staged and committed. So within the terminal, I'm gonna type git add jokes.txt, git commit, added a fish joke. Okay, last step. We need to go back to our master branch and merge this code in. I'm gonna type git checkout master to go back to our master branch. Then I'm going to type git merge add more joke. Done. So option number 2, changing the history. I highly recommend avoiding this scenario. The whole point of Git is to be able to track your project's history. Okay, really there are only a few instances where this is even acceptable. Earlier I had mentioned squashing commits. So if you're working with a large team or on an open source project, you might want the commits for a feature to be squashed into a single commit. But even then you might not want to squash them until the code has been finalized and approved in review. The second instance is removing sensitive information, and this can be a little tricky and is not foolproof. It's better if you just don't even commit that sensitive information to your repository to begin with. When you change the history, it's a similar process to that git rebase -I, except when you get ready to push, you'll have to use a -- force flag in order for it to go through. You should also make your team aware of these changes so that they can be working from the correct version of the code. And we're done. We're done. All this code is posted on GitHub. Feel free to download it, modify it, use it, whatever. Have at it. If you like this video and want to see more videos about web design and development, hit the subscribe button below. Hit the bell icon if you want to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Until then,